Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Coffee and Football, presented by Adam Lowy and the Lowy Law Firm. I'm your host, Blake Monroe, where I'm joined each and every day by Bobby Burton and Jerry Hamilton. Guys, we are 45 days away from kickoff, from Texas kickoff. College football comes a little bit quicker than that. But tell us where you're checking in from. Get your questions in. Tell us what you're drinking. And tell us who your favorite number 45 is. We got a big show today. The guys are still at SEC Media Days. Texas infielder Ethan Mendoza will also be joining us here in about 30 minutes. But first, let's talk about what's happening later today at SEC Media Days, and that's Sark and the crew going to be meeting with you guys and all the media out there, talking a little bit. What are y'all anticipating there?
Well, I think if I'm looking at it right now, and I'm Steve Sarkisian, I'm wondering what this first SEC Media Day is going to look like, because, I mean, when I tell you it's a true zoo here at times, Kalen DeBoer is less than 10 yards away from us. The other side, there's like 150 reporters just waiting. It is kind of nuts a little bit at times here. So we're trying to keep our wits about us. But with Steve Sarkisian today, I think he's going to get all the questions about Quinn Ewers and Arch Manning one man can handle. I think he's going to get the questions about whether or not Texas is ready for the SEC, physically, mentally, etc. And I think he's going to get questions also about, what he expects the new receiver core to look like. What's he going to do to replace Byron Murphy and Tavondre Sweat? What about the secondary? He's going to get the full meal deal because this will be his first real opportunity in front of the media, a wide media, since the spring game. And so I'm interested to see what he has to say. Quinn Ewers also talking today, Jerry, as well as Jahdae Barron, and of course Kelvin Banks, the All-American tackle. All of those guys going before the media. We'll have full coverage here on Texas Football, as well as on TexasFootball.com. I'll tell you this. This is another thing that just blows me away about this event. It's not just that Kalen DeBoer is 10 yards away over here talking to, I don't even know, I think it's Dennis Dodd from CBS Sports. But it's not just that. It's that it's Texas today. It's Alabama. It's Florida. Guys, those are heavyweights of college football. When we would go to the Big 12 media days, it would be Texas and Oklahoma, and then the rest of the time it's kind of like whole home. Every day here, there's a couple of knockouts, whether it's LSU and Georgia yesterday. Every day, there's a team that is showing up here that has that profile that you're kind of like, okay, Texas is in a different atmosphere now. And so Alabama and Florida, as well as Mississippi State, go today, but Texas is the one that ends it. I think Sark goes on at 2:20. Is that right, Jerry? And so we're ready for it, excited about it as well.
Yeah, I'll say this too. What's interesting to what Bobby's point was, this is what I was going to say. What Alabama 6 national titles, Texas 1, Florida 2. That's 9 national championships today since 2005. So 9 of the last 20 national championships won today are by schools that will take the mic today. Yes, Florida and Texas have been down, but to Bobby's point, that's what I was going to say is, man, these are 3 of the very best programs, athletic programs, too, in the country today. It'll be so interesting. And we've had some questions in the chat. I hope nobody asks Sark, because you only get 15 or 20 minutes with him, about horns down. I mean, please, all the media people, don't ask that question today. That's a waste of a question for Steve Sarkisian. I'd rather somebody ask for the 5th time if the defensive line's ready for the SEC and get another answer than ask about horns down. But look, and then Greg Sankey's over here doing interviews the other way, Bobby. So, it's pretty much football royalty here, me excluded, from all these conversations here in Dallas at Media Days. It's been great. Day 3, I'm very interested to see the college. Somebody speaking on the college football playoffs here coming up in 30 minutes as well. But really interested to see what Kalen DeBoer has to say, because look, because this is going to matter for Texas fans in the future and in these races in the SEC. Remember, Bobby, what too long ago that when Kalen DeBoer got to town, can he recruit? Is he going to be able to recruit at Alabama? He's never recruited in the South before. Well, look who has the number one ranked class right now. They won't finish with the number one ranked class, I don't think. But look who does have the number one ranked class right now. Yeah, Kalen DeBoer's won everywhere he's been. He's going to recruit really well at Alabama. There's nothing in his DNA that says he's going to fail. So people need to get that out of their mind. And any Alabama fans probably need to get that out of their mind too. But so it's also very interesting. The two returning coaches from last year's college football playoff today. Nick Saban retired. Jim Harbaugh is living in a van down by the river, coaching a NFL team now. But Sarkisian, Kalen DeBoer, the only two guys that were in the playoff last year still in college football are going to speak today. So it'll be interesting because they're going to be asked about the 12-team playoff, I think, what that's going to look like moving forward, college football moving forward. They're both at power broker programs. So both of those guys today, I think we'll get some similar questions, and it'll be interesting to see how they answer differently or if the answers are very similar. I'm really excited to listen to Kelvin Banks today. I think Kelvin Banks is going to bring a lot of passion. I've been listening in on as many of these player availabilities as possible. I said day one, Jared Ivey, the edge player out of Ole Miss, was the most impressive. Yesterday, Brady Cook, hands down. Texas fans, you may not be a fan of Brady Cook. I'll be cheering for Brady Cook a little bit after yesterday. That sounded like Sam Ehlinger talking about Texas, the love that guy has for Missouri, sticking it out through some rough seasons. Then last season, having a big season for Missouri. Now, obviously, their expectations this year, they're going to be a really good football team. Eli Drinkwitz was extremely impressive yesterday for those that missed that. But Brady Cook sounded so much like Sam Ehlinger in his love for Missouri yesterday. I was kind of taken aback because he came out and said, it was pretty interesting. He's like, my dream has been to lead Missouri to wins as the quarterback of Missouri. And he openly, candidly said he knows a lot of Missouri fans didn't want him to be the starting quarterback after his first year. It wasn't pretty. It was a struggle, but his resiliency, his stick-to-itiveness, and his love for that university, I think, along with Eli Drinkwitz being an up-and-coming star in college football coaching, but that kind of passion for that school that he plays quarterback at, I think is elevating Missouri, Bobby.
I like Drinkwitz as well. I think that the guys that the coaches that have impressed me thus far that you probably wouldn't expect from what I've seen and heard here have been Eli Drinkwitz, and Lane Kiffin. Lane Kiffin on Monday, he just had a different vibe about himself than what you maybe expect him to have. He has this gregarious personality, at least on Twitter, right, Jerry? But he seemed very reserved and calm, cool, collected on Monday as anybody I've seen. I'll also say this. Brent Venables, we posted that on Texas Football, his Q&A with the media. I mean, I don't know. Was he the least impressive? I mean, it's fair, right? Now, maybe, and I wrote this on Texas Football, just because you're not a good speaker doesn't make you a bad football coach. Those are two different things, so don't get me wrong about that. But he was definitely awkward at times. Lane Kiffin was really good, I thought. But, we'll see. On the player side, someone just mentioned Danny Stutzman, the linebacker from Oklahoma. Very well spoken, in my opinion. Does a great job articulating himself. And like Brady Cook, very much a fan of where he goes to school. So in that respect, I thought he was really, really good. Hey, before we bring in our special guest, Blake, I need to say thank you to our sponsor. Our sponsor is Adam Lowy of the Lowy Law Firm. Adam's been with us now for more than a year. We appreciate him very, very much. If you've been injured in a car wreck, truck wreck, automobile accident of any kind, including even an ATV, and think you might be due compensation, make sure you give Adam and his firm a chance to earn your business. They'll give you a free consultation. Reach out to them at loweylawfirm.com. Again, more than 20 years experience helping injured Texans. loweylawfirm.com.
So we want to thank them for sponsoring each and every Wednesday right here on Coffee and Football. And yeah, we'll go ahead and bring him in, one of Texas' newest players here, infielder Ethan Mendoza. Ethan, how's it going this morning?
It's going great. How about yourselves?
We're good. Doing good. Well, first, congratulations on the switch over to Texas. So I got to ask you, why Texas? What made you choose the Longhorns?
I would say a couple reasons that I chose Texas is I'm close to my family. My family is about 3 hours away. I think I realized that I missed them a lot when I was in Arizona. And my family is a lot closer to Texas. UT's great tradition. I mean, Coach Schloss and Tula over there are going to do some great things over there. We're going to win a couple championships, I'm hoping. I just can't wait to get over there and do great things for them.
I've got to ask you, you went to high school with Quinn Ewers, right, at South Lake?
Yes, sir, I did. Yes, sir. When I was
guys,
a freshman, I think Quinn was a junior, and I think he graduated early the next year. So
yeah, absolutely. What's it like coming back home? You mentioned that you went out to Arizona State for a couple of years. Now you're headed back home. Is that a situation you just talked about a little bit? But I guess what I'm getting at here is coming back home really where you wanted to be the whole time in some respects, or is this just a part of your next step in baseball?
I would say it's a part of my next step in baseball. I think Arizona is really good to me, but I kind of wanted to come home. Like, I've been a Texas fan my entire life. I think this is where I wanted to end up. Since I was a little kid, I went to camp every single year with all the great coaches. I remember growing up and just talking to the players. I went, I think, literally every single year, even in high school, my freshman, sophomore, and junior year. So I've been a Texas fan my entire life, and I think this was the end place I really wanted to end up.
Ethan, I got to ask, you talked about Schloss a second ago, but I'd like to get your thoughts on them. I know Texas fans are obviously curious about him. They've only seen him speak once at the introductory press conference. But what are your thoughts on Jim Schlossnagle and his assistant coaches as well?
Yeah, I would say that, Schloss, he wants to win. He knows how to win. And all the coaches around him, they're very eager. When I went on my visit, I could tell that they were very excited about this upcoming year and very excited to be a Longhorn. They expect to win, and I know everyone at Texas really wants to win. You saw it last year. Schloss, he went to the championship, and he was like one run away from winning and lost a couple of their good players. I think that's the expectation, and he's like, I would say most people think he's a very hard coach, but that's what I want personally as a player. I want someone who's going to try to push me to be the best player I can be.
Hey, Ethan, Jerry Hamilton here. Thanks for joining the show. I have a question. You were on a state championship team, correct, at South Lake?
Yes, sir.
First of all, congrats, because that's really difficult to do in baseball. But here's my question. I know you were younger, but what did you take away, aside from y'all being really talented at South Lake, what did you take away from the components that went into winning a state championship team that you think have to carry over to the college level? Because it's important once you've been on a winning team before. The speeches the coach gives, the work in the offseason, the locker room, what has to come together for that all to happen, no matter how talented you are. What were some of your takeaways from that are going to have to happen at Texas?
I think Coach Vukan, he's over there at South Lake Carroll. He's won a couple of championships. He always talks and preaches about winning. And just even the beginning of the year, the goal of mine is to win a championship. And I think Schloss knows that, and he's going to keep repeating it to ourselves. We got to know your goal throughout the entire year. You can't lose sight of it. And at South Lake Carroll, they have the highest expectations, everywhere you go, academics, athletics. So that is one of the best school in the nation, to be honest. It has the best top facilities, and South Lake Carroll is just amazing.
I got to ask you this. What was your reaction to Jim Schlossnagle taking the Texas job after being the head coach? You're a native Texan. The vitriol and the rivalry that can be Texas A&M. What was your take when Schloss took the Texas job after leaving Texas A&M?
Personally, I was a little excited. I think he's going to do great things over here. I know Texas their history and just everything with winning. And Schloss, I know he's going to carry that over and maybe bring a couple of championships the next couple of years. I really enjoy talking to him personally. He's a competitor. You can just tell by talking to him 5 minutes easily, and he knows what he wants and knows how to get it. So I think Jim Schlossnagle is going to be excellent for this program.
Hey, what position do you think you're going to play at Texas? Have they talked to you about that at all, Ethan? I know Blake introduced you as an infielder. What position are you going to play, you think?
So most likely I'm going to play in the middle infield. I know Jalen Flores is coming back, so hopefully we can have a little competition over there and try to make each other better. I think that would be good for both of us. I mean, I wouldn't mind playing second base this year and then hopefully getting a shot at shortstop next year. That would probably be the optimal goal. And yeah, that's basically it.
Hey, Ethan, you come in year one of Texas going to the SEC. I mean, the guys are at SEC Media Days right now. So what are you anticipating there as far as that move to the SEC? And how drastic of a change do you feel like the level of competition will be?
Yeah, so I wouldn't say like these are the best players in the U.S. right now. Like obviously the SEC is the top competition. I'm just excited to get up with Coach Schloss and see like what his thoughts are in the SEC and just try to learn from him, because I personally have never been there. We played a couple teams, but they were on a whole different level than us. And I'm excited for just the competition. Like personally, like I think just playing the best people every day will gonna make everyone better and then make us better. And yes, sir.
And then last question for you, Ethan, before we let you go. A lot of Texas fans obviously just now getting familiar with you and your play. So tell folks out there what you bring to the fold, what type of hitter you are, what your best traits are as a baseball player.
So I would say my best traits as a baseball player is probably my bat to ball skills. I'm going to try like not to strike out as much and just put the bat on the ball and get on base for the other guys to hopefully drive me in. I'm going to play a solid defense, play consistent defense. I would say I'm a very consistent player, and I'm hoping to bring that over to Texas this year.
There you go. All right, Ethan. Well, thank you so much for joining us, man. Can we get a hook 'em from you?
Yeah, hook 'em.
Look forward to seeing you at the Dish this coming year, Ethan.
Yes,
That's
sir.
fun.
Thank you for having me.
Hey, Blake, I got to ask you a question now as it relates to all the transfers that are coming in through the portal. Ethan, obviously one of the key guys there. Give us a 30-second update on baseball and the transfer portal right now and where Longhorns sit in that regard.
Yeah, so I actually spoke to someone yesterday afternoon. Looks like they're getting close to winding down as far as getting people out of the transfer portal. I think the main thing and the main focus, I guess I should say, has been on pitching. They've needed pitchers. They've done a great job of restocking that, looking at high school, JUCO, even into the transfer portal. So they added another one from South Carolina yesterday, who they feel very, very good about. We'll see if they add anybody else, but it wouldn't surprise me if they are done now when it comes to the portal. So if they do add one, I think it'll just be just one or two. But all right, guys. Well, let's get back to some football talk. Jerry, I know you got some recruiting updates. What's the latest?
Yeah, so obviously Kelshawn Johnson commits to Texas A&M yesterday. I just put up a story on TexasFootball.com about percentages I'm currently at with some top Texas targets. So you can go over to OTF.com on TexasFootball.com. Go be an OTF OG member if you haven't. And there's some percentages there. I think Texas is ascending, rising with a couple of key guys in the state of Texas right now in this recruiting class. And I actually think I'm going to bring up Owen Horns. This is a question, OTF. I think it was questions for Sark. Quinn last year, recruiting drop-off is 2024 must-win year in the SEC for Sark and Co. I'm going to address recruiting drop-off, not picking on anybody. What if I told you that on October 1st, Texas class will be ranked higher than it was last year on October 1st? Because that's what I think is about to happen. So it's just interesting when we look at this now. That's a class ranking. Texas has work to do at a couple of positions. But remember, last year's class wasn't ranked top 5 right now. Brandon Baker wasn't committed. Ryan Mingo wasn't committed. Kobe Black wasn't committed. Xavier Philsamy and Aaron Butler didn't have offers. Ty Anthony Smith was committing to A&M, and Wardell Mack was committed to Florida. Those guys were all added later in the recruiting class. My opinion right now is Texas class is going to be ranked higher by October 1 than last year's class was at the same time. Now, with that being said, Texas has some work to do in a couple spots, D-line, secondary. But Texas is trending for some pretty good players right now. We'll see how it ends up.
Jerry, I've got to out you. You know I've got to do this, my man. You dropped the high on the message board yesterday of On Texas Football. You know, everybody out here that watches Coffee and Football or is an OG at On Texas Football knows what a high means. It means the Longhorns got a silent commitment yesterday, in your opinion, or to your knowledge, I should say. Any care to divulge who that is, or are you just going to keep us all in the dark?
Got to take a sip of coffee.
As he stays on mute. And any other recruiting information that people need to be aware of right now, Jerry?
No. So we have some big decisions coming up, some big announcements coming up. I think, look, Khalid Lockett's August 7th. Jamie French is August 30th. Michael Fasusi's August 21st. Michael Terry, I think, will be before the season now, early August. And he'll be at the pool party in late July. Then you get down that we're waiting on Nathan Tillman from Mansfield Timberview, which could be this week. I think I watched a little video here. I think we're watching Khalid Lockett here.
Terry.
Oh, it's Michael Terry. Sorry, Michael Terry here. Yeah, why I should have known that. He is 6'2", 211 in this video. But we're right. Nick Brooks will be September. So there's 9 players right now that are Texas targets that are currently uncommitted. See what happens with those guys. But if Texas hits on 4 of those guys, they're going to sit there and have the number 7th ranked, 6th, 7th, 8th ranked class come October 1st. So after everything that's gone on, Texas is still recruiting at a really high level. Do they have some work to do at some certain positions? Yeah, absolutely. But I think we've been in sky is falling mode a little bit too much. So yeah. And so Trey's, the highs don't always work out. So we'll see. If I told you 8 of those 10 guys end up committing to Texas, would you take it? If 10 guys committed to Texas privately and 8 of those guys end up going public, would you take it? That's been what 3 straight 5 classes look like. So we'll see what happens. Yeah, I mean, you think I'm just doing this for fun. I'm not doing this for fun. I'm trying to give you guys some insight. You think they've worked out in the past? Texas signed 3 straight top 5 classes. And they're going to sign a top 10 class again this year.
A lot of people want to know the high count. Can you give people a high count by any? He's going to sip that coffee and go back on mute. Okay. Well, I will bail you out here, and I know you guys talked to executive, or I'm sorry, I guess representatives from the Shrine Bowl and the Senior Bowl yesterday. Had some interesting conversations there. What can you share with the good folks watching?
Yeah, so we spoke with Jim Nagy. We'll have an interview with him, the executive director of the Senior Bowl. And then we also spoke with a representative from the Shrine Bowl. And I thought what was so interesting about that yesterday is 12 players on the Senior Bowl list have draftable grades. 12 Longhorns. 12 Texas Longhorns. Now, that's a bigger list now. So just say that ends up being 9. That means Texas is going to have double-digit draft picks again this year. The Shrine Bowl list, which it's considerably bigger right now they're working off of, they have 15 draftable Texas Longhorns on their list to start the season. Those are big numbers, Bobby. Those numbers are actually bigger than last season at this time.
I want to add something that I found really interesting on the Senior Bowl list, at least at this point. They had Jermaine Lole as a draftable grade. By the way, they had Bill Norton as a draftable grade. They did not have, and they had Alfred Collins. They did not have Vernon Broughton as a draftable grade. So, look, there's a lot out there that's going on. Another thing that I would say that was interesting talking to those guys, the amount of respect that they have for Sark and what he's done at Texas over the last 3 years. Jim Nagy I interviewed him yesterday, the executive director of the Senior Bowl, longtime NFL scout. And his reality of it, Jerry, was that he felt like he's watched Texas each of the last 7 years because it's one of the big schools for him to go to, et cetera. He just said the progression is daylight and dark. I mean, they had 11 draft picks last year. They've got 12 guys with draftable grades right now. Now, that doesn't mean 12 guys get drafted. But, you know, Texas is in a unique situation. They invited Jahdae Barron to the Senior Bowl last year. He was talking about that. We're definitely inviting him again this year. So just a lot of different things going on right now for Texas in that regard. And that's why Texas is rated where they are.
Okay, y'all. And then I want to know, what were y'all? I asked y'all this yesterday about Monday, so I'm going to ask again today. What were your major takeaways from yesterday?
I thought Eli Drinkwitz was extremely impressive. Missouri will have a tough time keeping him long term, in my opinion, even though his family's in El Dorado, Arkansas. A lot of his family's from Oklahoma, so I would actually hope he doesn't end up at Oklahoma doing this show. I think Eli Drinkwitz is really good. I think he gets it. I think he gets all of everything that goes on in college football. I think he's a very bright guy. I think he's an innovative guy. He was very impressive to me yesterday. Look, Kirby Smart, there's a confidence with him this year behind the scenes from people I was talking to. You don't ever want to say they think it could be their best team. They think it could be their best offensive team. And that's not even a question. They think this could be their best offensive, but this should be the best offensive team Georgia's had in the Kirby Smart era. So take it for what that is, but that's what I was told.
To say he is confident, Kirby Smart, would be an understatement. And I think he's got good reason because he's got the players. He was extremely confident at the mic yesterday. I don't know that. Talk about a transition, by the way. 3 or 4 years ago, he was the coach who couldn't win the big game. Now he's a guy that's got 2 national championships, Jerry, and sitting on top of the college football world. So Kirby Smart was impressive as well. And I'm, to Jerry's point, very, very confident with his team and what he has, more so than typical. And you can tell that. I'm interested to see what Kalen DeBoer has to say this morning as well. That's going to be one where you're talking about a guy that had elite offensive talent last year, as good or better than anybody in the country. Well, he's going to go to a team that now has that kind of level on defense at some point. And he's never had that. He didn't have it at Fresno State. He didn't have it at Washington. He had some good players. But the numbers they have on defense at Alabama, and then the running backs, the quarterback can run the ball so well. I'm interested to see what Kalen DeBoer has to say, too.
Blake, Zane Petty says, drink to Florida next year. I think Billy Napier is going to be sandwiched, speaking in between DeBoer. I think it's DeBoer, then Billy Napier, then Levy, then Sark today in that order. Sark takes the mic about 2:20 today, guys. And then the players are going to be about 30 minutes after that. But Florida, if Napier doesn't make it, you know the 3 names you're going to hear: Dan Lanning, Lane Kiffin, Eli Drinkwitz. And then you got to figure out who's a Sexton guy and go from there. I mean, that's pretty much where we're at with the Florida job next year. I wanted to I love it when other guys come in real quick, Bobby. I love it when other guys come in. We have an Alabama fan. He's been coming in. We appreciate that. Smooth. We'll talk about all of it. We'll talk about all of this. Kalen Deere, I want to say something because he's committed to Ole Miss. There's been rumors he may flip to Alabama. I just want to, somebody I've known for years in Mississippi, and I said it on this show way back right before he committed to Ole Miss, actually predicted that Kalen Deere would end up at Alabama by signing day. We'll see if that happens. That'd be a heck of a pickup. Khalil Lockett, I know he's mentioned Khalil Lockett a couple of times. We'll see. I think that one may be trending away from Bama a little bit, but we'll see what he announces on August 7th.
Toward Texas, too, by the way, is what we're thinking right now with Khalil Lockett.
Jerry, can you tell folks out there about Manscaped?
Boy, can I. Guys, I got it done this morning. The 5.0 was out. I got it done. I started my day the right way. Look, it's summer barbecue sizzle alert. This summer, let the only thing smoking at your barbecue be the grill, not your grooming game. Get ready for the ultimate cookout season with Manscaped. Whether you're flipping burgers or cannonballing into the Omni pool upstairs behind us, make sure your meat looks neat with the Performance Package 5.0 Ultra. Fire up the grooming routine and keep it cool with Manscaped. I did it this morning. 100% satisfied. As always, manscaped.com. Use code ONTEXAS, all caps, for 20% off and free shipping. Let this summer sizzle for all the right reasons. And I said it yesterday, and I've got one more day to say it today. This sun is beating down at the angle we're in, and I'm wearing jeans. So you know what? Anti-chafing ball deodorant is a point to make today. For those sunny beach days and barbecue parties, don't leave home without the Crop Preserver Anti-Chafing Ball Deodorant. Let the sun see you shine, not sweat. Jerry Hamilton 5.0 this morning. Love it.
Bobby has no comment today. Oh, man. Okay, guys. Well, plenty of time to get your questions in, so please do so. And we're going to go ahead and jump right into those questions. We actually have a super chat here from Juan Garza. Thank you, Juan. He says, if you get Sark on Texas football, can you ask him about defensive tackle recruiting? Thank you for all you do. Hook 'em.
I tell you what, we're going to get him for I don't know that we'll get him for On Texas Football because he has a bunch of other media appointments to make. But I am going to get in a small group setting with him, and that will be one of the questions that comes up. Speaking of defensive tackle recruiting, DJ Sanders, young man out of Belleville, Texas, apparently Jerry, Michigan, back in the hunt for him right now. It had to be something holding him up from making a decision between Texas and Texas A&M. Michigan right now making a play for DJ Sanders as well. He may make another visit to Michigan before announcing a decision. We'll see what that means. Again, defensive tackle recruiting, Juan, has not gone the way Texas had hoped, at least thus far. But we'll see what we can do. And I will ask Steve Sarkisian that question today. Not necessarily in the big group, not in front of 500 people, but I'll get him along with about 4 or 5 other people at around noon today and make sure I ask him that question.
Then our next question is going to come from. I'm not going to ask Jerry any high questions. Sorry. Hioli Frioli 93 says, how much do you think Sark and staff are studying last season's SEC championship game to find weaknesses in Georgia's team against the Bama team they beat?
Well, it's tough because these teams, it's different. It's different. I mean, obviously, Alabama has Jalen Milroe, a guy that makes plays with his feet at the quarterback position. But I think with Georgia, I think they've changed a lot themselves. So these teams are so much different. Look, I think the one thing, if I had to break down Georgia, this is what I would say: offensive line, huge strength of their team, best offensive line they've had. Obviously, Carson Beck, year 2 as a starting quarterback, and he talked about patience in his media breakout session the other day. Look, I've been told that this is the best skill guys Georgia's had. Now, that includes wide receivers, running backs, and tight ends. Best skill guys they've had under Kirby this year. Now, that's a different team than what you saw last year schematically. A little bit will change, but also personnel-wise, because Humphreys comes in from Vanderbilt. Colby Young comes in from Miami to go with what was already there. I think it's different. I think you could, from a schematic standpoint, look, I mean, Sark's gone up against Kirby. I mean, he's gone up against Schumann. There's a known there already. I think the personnel changes are more impactful than anything they would see in a game, Bobby, from a scheme standpoint. I think the scheme stuff is pretty much known. Not that there aren't going to be wrinkles, but I think the personnel changes are significant because, look, some people could ask Kirby Smart the same thing. What do you see from Texas? And Kirby Smart would say it's a much different team. I mean, this is a much different team. Xavier Worthy Xavier Mitchell are gone. They bring in Bond. Nyblack's a different player than Sanders. They may use him in a different way. Sark may use him in a different way than they use Sanders in the passing game. So I think there's so much roster turnover year to year in college football right now that those questions are seemingly more difficult to answer.
Our next question, fellas, is going to come from LL. Jerry, you mentioned Fasusi earlier. And LL wants to know, what will sway Fasusi one way or another? Is it playing time?
And that's a good question. So I think that Oklahoma has a couple things in their favor in this recruitment right now. I do think, look, Michael Fasusi's a 5-star ranked offensive tackle, very talented guy, December high school graduate. He has designs on going in and competing for a starting job right away. How realistic is that at Texas or Oklahoma? I don't know. Yeah, Oklahoma's going to lose guys, and I think that's a good pitch for Oklahoma. But like when Kelvin Banks went in and started at Texas, everybody knows on this chat that the cupboard was pretty bare. We'll see. I think it's going to be tough to go in and start at an Oklahoma or Texas for Michael Fasusi, as talented as he is. I think the situations are different, and I know that's a good selling point for Oklahoma. But I think that's one thing Oklahoma has right now in his mind is maybe that earlier opportunity immediately at left tackle, because there's some unknowns with Texas. I mean, look, Cam Williams could have a great year and go pro, right? It's not out of the question. Amarius Mims did it at Georgia last year. Obviously, Kelvin Banks will go pro. What happens if Cameron Williams sticks around another year? Does Trevor Gooseby take over at left tackle? Does Cam Williams go to left tackle and Brandon Baker take over at right tackle? That's competition that would have to happen in the spring, right? And Jaden Chapman's a talented guy. So I think on the surface, Oklahoma looks like a better situation to go in and compete right away than Texas for Fasusi, to answer your question.
And we have a couple of super chats here. Let's start with this one from Osas the Destroyer. And thank you, by the way, for the super chat. How is Jamie French's scouting report different from Khalil Lockett's scouting report? And how will they differ under Sark's scheme?
So Jamie French scouting report, Khalil Lockett. Both, here's where their strengths are. Both have elite timing, ball skills, ball tracking skills, body control. I think both guys are elite at that. I think Khalil Lockett may be a top 2 or 3 guy in the country in this class at that. Tracking the ball, body control, catch radius, all that. 11-inch hands. I've said it before. He's got the biggest hands on a 6'2" receiver I've ever seen. So I think that is some really elite skill set both those guys have. I think when you look at them athletically, I think Jamie French may be a little quicker off the line, may have a little bit more long speed right now, maybe a little twitchier after the catch, making first move, second move. I think Khalil Lockett is extremely talented at going up and getting a football and that body control and that timing. I think Jamie French is going to maybe be a better double move type route runner, Bobby, maybe more of a complete route runner. But we'll see. Khalil Lockett, I mean, both these guys have things they got to continue to work on. Jamie French, by the way, not even close to filling out physically. Neither is Khalil Lockett. Khalil Lockett, the big thing for him will be as he gets bigger in a college program, does he also continue to get faster? He reminds me of Jalen Polk from Washington. Bigger catch radius, maybe. Maybe not the burner that some people are, but Jalen Polk went, what, second round? Somebody would know that, second or third round. I think he went second. Jalen Polk ran 4.52 at the combine. So he wasn't the 4.4 guy. Second round pick, tremendous football player. That Khalil Lockett somewhat reminds me of that skill set with maybe even with a bigger catch radius, even more 50-50 ball winning ability.
And a follow-up to that, Ivory Martin asked, who does French and Lockett remind you of? He personally thinks that French could be similar to A.D. Mitchell.
That's what I've always thought watching Jamie French. And I asked Jamie French, it's in the video from a couple of weeks ago when I was at Jacksonville, that workout at the park that day. And he mentioned A.D. Mitchell. He mentioned a couple other guys. But, yeah, A.D. Mitchell, maybe from a physical perspective, and then just that route running, natural ability to create some separation. That's kind of who he reminds me of, because Jamie French is, 6'1.5" without shoes on, probably almost 6'3" with shoes on. He's going to be a 6'2", 6'2.5" guy. Similar frame to A.D. Mitchell after 3 years in college. I'm not saying he's going to run 4.35 like A.D. Mitchell, but I don't think anybody watched A.D. Mitchell last year and thought he was going to rip off a 4.35-ish number at the NFL Combine. When these guys train the run, the 10-yard split and the 40, it's amazing how much faster they can get. But I think on a football field, I think Jamie French is going to be very similar to A.D. Mitchell, maybe with a little more wiggle on first movement after the catch.
And one more on wide receiver recruiting. Actually, two, but I'm going to combine them in one. Justin on Twitter asked, is it looking like a 2 wide receiver class with the possibility of a third we don't know about? LL also says, is there another third wide receiver target now that Johnson and Hines are off the board, or are they content with French, Lockett, and possibly Terry?
So here's what I would say to that. I think it's a great question. I would hesitate saying off the board. I would say committed elsewhere. And see what happens on senior video. See what happens as this recruiting process moves along with some players. Because if Texas really likes some of these guys on senior video, they'll go in and make another run. I think they'll stay in contact with Kelshawn Johnson this season. No different than they'll stay in contact with the name we don't want to bring up every chat, and Dallas Wilson. That's just the way Sark recruits. Texas is in contact with Josiah Sharma and Myron Charles. They don't walk away from these guys. I think Tuna Kynes on senior video will be very interesting from a recruiting perspective. He was injured half the year last year. The track times he put up this spring, I think, caught some colleges off guard a little bit. So I think you just got to hang in there. But there's a number of wide receivers that Texas will stay in contact with. Will it be a 2 or 3 man receiver class? I still think it'll be 3. At the end of the day, it's fluctuated between 3 and 4. Michael Terry, one of the more interesting recruitments for me in this class. Oregon saying running back, Texas saying athlete, A&M saying athlete, Nebraska saying wide receiver. Texas and Texas A&M are saying, we'll give you some reps at wide receiver, and then we'll decide what you are from there, right? So I think that's kind of Michael Terry zeroing in a little bit more on his decision. He'll be at Texas in late July, and I think he's not going to play receiver long-term at the college level. But, look, he could start his career there and then move from there. Not dissimilar from some other guys in the past.
All right, Bobby, before we move on to the next questions here, our next set of questions here, I'm going to let you tell folks out there about Mint Mobile.
Yeah, absolutely. I tell you what, Mint Mobile is a plan that I just switched to with my family. Mint Mobile offers premium wireless service for just $15 a month when you purchase a 3-month plan. That's right, premium wireless service for just $15 a month. Friends don't let friends overpay for wireless, so say bye-bye to your overpriced wireless plan and switch to Mint Mobile. Mint Mobile is here to rescue you and your squad with premium wireless plans. All plans come with high-speed data and unlimited talk and text delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. Use your own phone with any Mint Mobile plan and bring your phone number along with all your existing contacts over. Ditch overpriced wireless with Mint Mobile's deal and get 3 months of premium wireless service for just $15 a month. To get this new customer offer and your 3-month premium wireless plan for just $15 a month, go to mintmobile.com/OnTexas. That's mintmobile.com/OnTexas. Cut your wireless bill to just $15 a month at mintmobile.com/OnTexas. Here's the disclaimer: $45 upfront payment required, equivalent to $15 a month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes on unlimited plan. Additional taxes, fees, and restrictions apply. See Mint Mobile for details. Again, mintmobile.com/OnTexas.
Blake, let me hit one thing real quick. Scott Knudsen says, Jerry, being a senior, can David Daniel Sisfa, I can't remember, now be picked up by any school, or does he have to enter the portal? What's your read on his ability? So that's a Georgia safety that was dismissed recently for team violations. I don't see him being in play for Texas. But I don't know. Would he be able to transfer to another SEC school? I don't think he would.
Now, they have a rule that even grad transfers, Jerry, cannot transfer from one SEC school to another after the month of February. So that's just the way it is. Hey, I want to talk a little bit, Jerry, about Quinn Ewers, if we get a chance. He's got a big day today. He's coming before the media. He'll speak right after Sark. I'm going to give you his stats from last year. 272 of 394, okay, for 3,479 yards, 22 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. That's a completion rate, Jerry, of 69% and a 3.67 TD to interception ratio. Okay, Quinn finished 14th overall in the country in passing yards a year ago. Here's his primary competition in the SEC. The two guys, Carson Beck, for comparison, 417 passes. Beck was healthy all year, though. Quinn was out for a little bit. He was 302 for 417. That's 72%. Quinn was 22 and 6 TD to interception. Beck was 24 and 6. So Beck about, a little bit more passing because of the issue that Quinn had with injury. But listen to this yardage differential that Beck had compared to Quinn. Beck went for 3,941 yards compared to Quinn's 3,479. That's almost 500 more yards passing. That's pretty significant difference. Now, the other one everybody talks about in the SEC right now, I'm talking about the other two actually that people talk about: Jackson Dart at Ole Miss and Brady Cook at Missouri. Quinn finished 14. Beck finished 3rd in the country in passing yardage. Well, Dart was actually below Quinn, as was Cook. Just to give you an idea of what Quinn Ewers brings to the table, he's coming back with better numbers than Jackson Dart and Brady Cook. Dart now had 23 and 5 TD interception ratio, but actually had a lower completion percentage. Brady Cook was 21 and 6, a lower completion ratio as well. I just think that, Quinn Ewers is a special player, and I don't know that he gets the love he deserves from Texas fans, because so many people are ready to see Arch Manning, right, and that big name that's behind him. But I've felt like this for quite a while, ever since Quinn got the starting job at Texas. I think we've seen a steady improvement in his leadership skills. It wasn't overnight, Jerry. Some people expect guys to be just turn on the light bulb or turn on the switch and the light bulb goes off and he's all of a sudden this alpha leader. You've talked about it on here before. I'm interested to see Quinn's maturation from last year at this time when I saw him at the Big 12 Media Days, where frankly he was somewhat shy. Shy is not the right word, but didn't speak a lot. It's just, it's very yes or no oriented answered questions. Where is he at today? And I think that could be emblematic of him becoming getting older and more mature and more prepared to actually be the leader of the team as opposed to a part of the team. And I thought last year he was starting to make that transition. This year he has to make that transition for Texas to become what Texas can be on the field.
Yeah, so I would say this, and I've said this before. I think Quinn's leadership process was set back leaving high school a year early, going to Ohio State and playing on scout team instead of leading South Lake Carroll team, community, in high school in search of another state championship. I think he missed a valuable forced leadership year as a senior quarterback in one of the best programs in the state of Texas with a community that expects championships. So I think that set him back a little bit. I don't expect him. One thing I don't expect to change with Quinn, he's not going to be a guy that steps in front of this mic today and people walk away saying the same things they did about Brady Cook or Jackson Dart. those guys are pretty outgoing in their personalities. Quinn's not that outgoing. It's just not as natural for him. You can't force it. You can't fake it. Or people that have been doing this a long time would say that guy's faking it if you know him at all. He just needs to be who he is. But he's not going to walk. He's not going to come and take the mic today and put on the type of have the same answers, length of answers, conversation like a Brady Cook did or like Jackson Dart. Carson Beck was pretty reserved at times yesterday. I expect you'll see that with Quinn. My biggest thing with Quinn is, look, I think there's 4. You went over it, Bobby. I think there's 4 awesome quarterbacks in the SEC. I think Carson Beck, Quinn Ewers. I think Jackson Dart may end up being, unless Georgia or Texas is the number 1 ranked team at the end of the year. I think Jackson Dart may end up being the first team All-SEC quarterback this year because he has the run element with the pass element, and he's got more people back around him at the skill positions. I think Brady Cook is going to have a huge season as well. They have an easier SEC schedule. He's got everybody back around him except the running back, but the receivers, the tight end. What will impress me about Quinn this year is if he makes the next step we think he makes. The thing that's going to impress me most about Quinn is you look at Georgia. Yes, Bowers and McConkey are gone, but Ra Thomas, the kid Lovett is back. Oscar Delp has played some tight end, obviously, at Georgia, and he's going to be an NFL draft pick. And Georgia's got that experienced offensive line like Quinn has. But of the 4 quarterbacks in the SEC, Quinn lost the most around him at wide receiver, at tight end, and at running back. So he is going to, if he takes this next step on the field that we expect him to take year 1 in the SEC, Bobby, he's doing it with Isaiah Bond coming into the program, Silas Bolden coming into the program, Matthew Golden coming into the program, Jonte Cook going from a reserve role to a starting role, Amari Nyblack coming into the program, Jaden Blue taking on more of a role, Cedric Baxter in year 2. I mean, gone are Worthy, Mitchell, Sanders, and Jonathan Brooks. No other quarterback in the SEC lost that much around him from a skill perspective. So if Quinn makes a next step this year, I think it'll be underestimated how truly impressive it'll be because he's got more new guys around him that he has to find that timing with quicker. And Whittington, correct.
I would add this. I mean, you're obviously forgetting about Jalen Milroe in that conversation. But I understand why. That's a run-oriented offense. Milroe completed 65% of his passes last year, but only had 284 attempts compared to 417 for Carson Beck, for example. I think that the quarterback situation in the SEC is really good right now. I will add that because, we're looking at it, and there are only a few teams where you're like, is this guy really going to be the guy? I will add, one of those teams is Oklahoma. They're not situated in a situation where they're 100%, they're going with Jackson Arnold, don't get me wrong, but is Jackson Arnold the dude for them long term? And that's a fair question right now, and we're going to find out. But I do think all the quarterbacks in this league, Jerry, it's a good quarterback lead right now. I mean, you're talking about Connor Wegman. You didn't even mention he's been mocked in the first round. A young man out of A&M. So there's a number of different guys right now. We'll see if that A&M offense is what needs to happen though too.
And on Jalen Milroe, I want to say this. I think it's going to be one of the more interesting, fascinating things to watch, at least for me in college football this year. He's going to be better in year 2. There's no doubt. Year 2 as a starting quarterback, just like Cedric Baxter will be better at year 2 as a starting running back. Jalen Milroe will be better year 2 as a starting quarterback. One of the most fascinating things to watch this year for me will be Kalen DeBoer. Look, people would say Kalen DeBoer, Sark, Lane Kiffin, probably your top 3 offensive guys, right? As far as more pro-style schemes, play callers in college football. His whole playbook that he had with Michael Penix at his disposal will not be available with Milroe. But what's he going to do to maximize Jalen Milroe? Because here's the thing. One thing you know about DeBoer, he's not going to square peg, round hole Jalen Milroe. The guy's won wherever he's been. He's not going to do that. He's too good of a coach. So he'll dial back what he wants to do somewhat to maximize what Jalen Milroe can do. And I think that's going to be fascinating to watch a coach that these guys that win at the highest level do the best job of putting their players in a position to be successful. And DeBoer is going to dial back what he ideally wants to do in the passing game to maximize what Jalen Milroe can do as a quarterback. And I think that's going to be really fascinating to watch because first-year coach, returning quarterback, not necessarily a quarterback that Kalen DeBoer would have recruited out of high school. And before people say Keelan Russell, totally different players. Keelan Russell is a passer, first, second, third, that's a really good athlete. So Keelan Russell is what Kalen DeBoer recruits at quarterback. But Jalen Milroe is not what Kalen DeBoer would have recruited at the quarterback position, Bobby. So it's going to be fascinating to see what he does to maximize Milroe and what he has to give up ideally out of his scheme to make that happen, to put the best team on the field that he can at Alabama.
Hey, y'all, we got some more super chats here. Gunnar Matthews says, hearing you guys, and thank you, Gunnar, hearing you guys talk about Trey Moore and playing with him on the video game where he is a cheat code. I think he can be the best player on Texas in 2024. Your thoughts?
Well, I mean, he has the best stats of any returning player, including Quinn Ewers. I mean, if you're talking about stats for a position, he had 14 and a half sacks last year. Now, that was at the the non-Power 5 and now Power 4 conference level. So you got to take it a little bit with not a grain of salt, but in perspective. I'm a big Trey Moore fan. I really am. And the reason why is because of what I've heard behind the scenes. He's the one guy that I was told has given Kelvin Banks repeated problems in pass protection. Kelvin Banks has not had issues in pass protection in practice for 3 years. Okay? For the first time ever, Kelvin Banks all of a sudden is starting to have issues in pass protection against a certain player. Now, when I say issues, it's relative. Kelvin Banks first round pick. But the fact that Trey Moore is causing that or being party to it, I think that, I hope he's a cheat code in the game, but I hope he's a cheat code on Saturdays. Because if he is, that's one of the questions Sark has to answer today, Jerry, is the defense. How are they going to replace Murphy and Sweat? I'm telling you. And if they have a better outside pass rush, that will mitigate some of that issue because teams will then, if they can get a pass rush, teams will try to run the ball up the middle more, and they can actually prepare for that better and stack for it better. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. So one of the key elements of an interplay that we'll see for the Texas defense this year, how much does a Trey Moore, Colin Simmons, another year of Ethan Burke, an addition of Colton Vasek, as well as Barron Sorrell, all make the defense better from the outside in this year, as opposed to last year where it was inside out. We haven't seen that yet. For Pete Kwiatkowski, we haven't seen it in his entire career at Texas, right? Interesting.
All right, and Bobby Gaithright, I'm not skipping your super chat. I'm going to save it for the very end there. I just wanted to let you know. 817 Mr. Talk Too Much says Colin Simmons over under 5 sacks for his freshman year.
Over. Look, but here's the over with this. There's always a caveat to those kind of questions, which I love the questions, by the way. It's so much fun to talk about. He could get 2 against ULM Monroe and 1 against UTSA and 1 against Colorado State, and you're already at 4. I think he's going over 5. If somebody asks me 6.5, that's where the tough part gets in. Does he get 6? Does he get 7? Colin Simmons is a difference maker edge rusher. He's gonna not only will he have sacks this year, he's gonna create pressure, get hits on quarterback, and he'll worry left tackles. That's the thing. After the tape gets out early in the season, when he's coming off the edge, when these teams start preparing for him, they're going to say, that guy's a little different. So what does that do? That puts a little more pressure on that left tackle when he's been out there for 30 snaps and they bring Colin Simmons in off the bench, meaning, obviously probably not going to start early in the season for this team. But when they bring him into the game, he's fresh. These guys aren't dummies. They're like, man, I've already been playing 6 snaps in this series, and here comes the guy that I saw on tape that's the best pass rusher on this team, potentially, or the most gifted pass rusher on this team. Trey Moore is going to be the best pass rusher on the team. So I think it's over. How much over? That's going to depend on the second half of the year in SEC play.
Hey, you mentioned those early games. I want to give y'all a number. I said that Quinn Ewers finished the season number 14 overall in the country in passing yardage. Number 15 was Braden Fowler-Nicolosi from Colorado State, by the way, Jerry. So right behind him, and that's the first game out of the gate for the Longhorns. He ended up 292 of 470. Okay, so lower passing percentage than Quinn by far, but he had 22 TDs, same as Quinn. He had 16 interceptions. If Texas doesn't get a couple picks in that game with the improved pass rush, that does not bode well for Texas long term this year. So that may be an early tell for the Texas secondary. If they don't get a pick or two off of the Colorado State quarterback, just something to look forward to. I noticed that stat and I'm like, wow, that's pretty eye opening. 16 picks is a lot. I mean, it's the second most of anybody in the top 50 quarterbacks for passing yardage.
Before we move on, Bobby, excuse me, can you tell folks out there about Adam Lowy and the Lowy Law Firm?
Yeah, absolutely. Adam is a friend of ours and been with the program now for more than a year. We really appreciate him. He's helped several of you guys out. If you've been in a car wreck, truck wreck, automobile accident, even an ATV accident, you're going to want to talk to Adam if you think you might be due compensation. He and his team give you a free consultation to talk about the issues and see whether or not they think you might be deserved compensation. Give him a shout. Reach out to him at loweylawfirm.com. That's loweylawfirm.com. Thank you, Adam, for your support of On Texas Football.
Okay, y'all, we got time for just a couple of more questions here. And I want to stay on the defense for a minute. Sterling asks, now that we have Trey Moore, is it Moore and Burke starting? It's a good problem to have, but who are the 2 starting edges for you guys?
I don't know if it matters who starts necessarily. I mean, I think Barron Sorrell, Ethan Burke are your natural starters early in the season. They've had the starting experience. I think what's going to be so interesting about the way Texas uses Trey Moore, Bobby, they used him off the ball a little bit in spring practice at times. They tinkered with some stuff there. So it's not out of the question that you could have Sorrell, Burke, and Trey Moore on the field at the same time for some limited snaps next year. So I'm not sure the starter. It's almost like basketball to me in a way that has a deep team. I'm not sure the starter matters other than you get to run out there first and you're the starter in the 2 deep. I think these guys, Colin Simmons, Finkley, obviously they're going to play a lot of snaps. So if Trey Moore is a starter or not, I'm not at the first game of the year, second game of the year. I think that's kind of irrelevant as to how many snaps he's actually going to play. But it's not out of the question that those 3 guys are on the field some at the same time next year.
Don't forget that Ethan Burke also cross-trained at Jack during spring practice. So whereas Trey Moore was almost exclusively at the boundary or the buck position, Ethan Burke cross-trained with Barron Sorrell at the Jack. So they could be looking in that direction a little bit. I think it'll be Sorrell and then either Burke or Trey Moore starting this year.
And we got time for about 2 more questions here. I'm going to go ahead and do this super chat. Bobby Gaithright, thank you, Bobby. He says, give some background on how the 3 of you met. How did Jerry and Bobby meet? How did Blake and CJ get involved? I'll answer my half. I've known Bobby and Jerry for about 15 years. Bobby actually gave me my first full-time recruiting position when we were both over at 24/7. Bobby, Jerry, I'm going to let you take y'all's part and explain that.
We met at a Manscaped convention 20 years ago.
Jerry, in all seriousness, Jerry, I don't remember. I mean, it's been so long. I mean, Jerry was always around recruiting events, and we just got to know each other. And then I think we really started working hand in hand when we started Horns 24/7 back in 2010. Jerry and I both started that together, along with Jeff Howe. He was there with us, and we did that for 4 or 5 years, I think, and just kept in touch the whole way through. He went off and worked for ESPN. I kept working for On3 Corporate. And then 3 or 4 years ago, Jerry said, "Hey, do you want to come work with me?" We were working and we wanted to go work at Inside Texas. We did that. And then about a year ago, we started On Texas Football, and the rest is history. We're here now. This has been, I will say this, Jerry, this has been the funnest I've had covering Texas in a long time. Maybe since Mac Brown was head coach. It probably has a little bit to do with winning, not just you, Jerry. I love you, Jerry, but hey, winning matters. As far as Blake's correct. I remember hiring Blake and appreciate all he's done throughout the years and covering Texas sports as well.
So from my perspective, that first, I think, real conversation Bobby and I had, and we've talked about this before, is Bobby was running Rivals. I was at Rivals at a team site, and I think Bobby maybe realized I was the guy going out there seeing the kids, and had some pretty strong opinions on the kids. And Bobby was part of putting together the All-Star games. And the first time I remember Bobby calling me was we were just to talk about Earl Thomas, players I'd seen when Bobby was making the picks for this All-Star game. And we talked about that before. That All-Star game that year, funny to look back on, was actually better than the U.S. Army game that year. I mean, Cam Newton, Earl Thomas, Des Bryant, some of the guys we had in that game were unbelievable. That's the first time I remember Bobby and I having like a real conversation, was when he was calling and we were talking about players, and Bobby was over the All-Star games.
I will add this. In that All-Star game, Joe Hayden, Morgan Burnett, Derek Sherrod, Rolando McClain. We had a great lineup, really did. And that's interesting. I remember that conversation too, Jerry, because I always go back on these. When people go out and see players in person, they just have a better feel. It's like when you meet coaches in person, you have a better feel for how maybe they relate to their team. It's the same with players. I mean, when I was first starting into this business, I would go watch a player on film, of course, but then going to the actual school and seeing how they practiced, that told you so much. I mean, if they were the leader in practice, that dude's going to be, I don't know if he'll be a leader at the university level, but he's going to fit in and he's going to try to maximize what he does. But anyways, no, I appreciate that, Jerry. And I remember those discussions and fondly. So a lot of water under the bridge since those. Earl Thomas has been replaced by Quandre Diggs. That was another one of your favorites as well. I remember talking to you about him too.
I want to tell you why, from my perspective, before we get out of here, why it's so important to go see these kids in person in this job if you're actually serious about it. I went to West Orange Start Jasper game when Earl Thomas was a junior and Dion Beasley was a senior. And I went down to and I'd been talking to Toby Foreman, who was a track coach, secondary coach at West Orange. He's now the head football coach in Killeen, I believe at Shoemaker. Great guy. And we're talking the day before the game. I said, "Hey, I'm coming down to the game." And he's like, "All right, cool." And he said, "I'll get you sideline pass, whatever." Back then, it was a little different. And he was like, "Have you seen the linebacker at Jasper?" And I said, "No." He said, "You haven't seen this guy?" And I was like, "No, I haven't." He said, "One of the best." He said, "He's as good a player as Earl and Dion." I was like, "Okay." So I left my house early that day, went to Jasper High School, talked to the staff, and the guy was Sean Weatherspoon, who went on to be a first-round pick out of Missouri. And Sean Weatherspoon, this is why you go see these kids in this business. 1,000+ SAT, student body president, but he did not have the means, transportation at that time to go see Texas and visit with Mac Brown, go to Oklahoma when recruiting was really early at that time and you really needed to go to the camps to be seen. The only camp he went to was a Art Briles University of Houston satellite camp in the Beaumont area. That was the only offer Sean Weatherspoon had the night I watched him play against Earl and Dion. And you didn't know at the time Earl was going to be an NFL Hall of Fame player. I think his studying of football put him, he maximized every ounce of what he had as a player. And he played all over the place at West Orange. That night on the field, Sean Weatherspoon was the best player on the field. And Missouri came in and offered him late. And I remember leaving that game saying, man, recruiting's a little messed up in this state right now. As good a job as good of the programs that Texas had and Oklahoma had, this kid literally never made it to their campus. And I didn't see 10 players better than him in the state of Texas that year, Bobby. And that's why you get out and see these guys. So we can talk about this now, however many years later. Sean Weatherspoon looked like a future first round, second round, third round pick on the field that night. He had one scholarship offer 4 games into his senior season. Amazing.
I got to say this about Earl Thomas. A lot of people questioned Texas even taking Earl Thomas at the time. And you know why? He played linebacker. Earl Thomas played linebacker at West Orange Star.
Running back.
Yeah.
Safety, linebacker.
But my point is, Dwayne Akina told me the story, the former Texas coach, about Earl Thomas. He went to go see Dion Beasley. Dion was a year older than Earl. And the West Orange Stark said, "Oh, who are you here to see?" And he said, "Oh, I'm here to see Dion Beasley." And the coach, who was an assistant, said, "I know you're here to see him, but this little dude over here, he's our best player." And it was Earl Thomas. And he was a 5'10" linebacker, 5'9.5" linebacker. Yeah, so it happens. Got to go see him. That's why coaches that get on the road get rewarded in recruiting. That's the bottom line.
Last one for today, fellas, from Slick Rick. Thank you for the super chat. Can you comment on Jackson Arnold not knowing about the use of iPads?
That is a one-read quarterback. That's what that means. Is that not what that means, Jerry? I mean, seriously, that's what it is in high school.
I don't know. I was a little taken aback by that. I've been a little surprised that some of the guys talking about headset, maybe not knowing as much as the fans do in some regard to that. But it's also interesting when these coaches have kind of used that in spring practice, not used it, test it out, not test it out, make some of those decisions. But yeah, that I heard about it. I wasn't there for that comment, but I did hear about it.
Okay, guys. Well, that's going to do it for today's show. Before we get out of here, I got to give a special thanks to Justin, John, and Renato at AMD there in Austin, the Austin, Texas X's, or I'm sorry, yeah, the UT grads, the Texas X's at AMD. They hooked me up in a big way. I just want to give a special shout out to those guys. I definitely appreciate all that y'all did for me. So there you go. And then thank you all for tuning in. Thank you for the super chats. We got to thank Adam Lowy, Manscaped, Mint Mobile for sponsoring today's show. We'll be back same time, same place tomorrow. But Bobby, I know y'all got some stuff coming down the pipe real quick. What do you have out there later today?
Absolutely. Got Fozzie Whitaker today. We're going to have his interview up around 11 o'clock. And then we'll start talking to Texas players and coaches. I meet with Steve Sarkisian around 12 o'clock behind the scenes. We'll talk a little bit about that as well. We got a lot of stuff coming up. Steve Sarkisian's at the podium. We'll have that full interview here on Texas Football. We'll also have other news and notes throughout the day. You can go and check it out on texasfootball.com. Please get there. And then we'll come back and recap a lot of it tonight with the live stream at 7 o'clock.
There you go. And by the way, obviously we can't be on all the time. So head on over to ontexasfootball.com. Use the promo code OTFOG. You get a full year for just $39.95. Bobby, Jerry, CJ, everybody over there posting good stuff around the clock. And you can't beat that. Promo code OTFOG at ontexasfootball.com. $39.95 for 1 year. So for Bobby Burton and Jerry Hamilton, I'm Blake Monroe, and we'll see you tomorrow morning.